Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on YouTube. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it? Especially if you love the movies.
Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your evangelist of the imagination, well, you know, Duke of Dope Discourse. Call me what you want. Your existential Mr. Rogers, that's what John Campea calls me. Robert Meyer Burnett, and I am here with Robservations episode number 805, coming at you from the Robservatory on Monday, August 22nd. Now, this is a pretty exciting, atypical episode of Robservations. I have a guest, a special guest, a man, I mean, he's a bon vivant, a man about town, an actor, a director. He's somebody that, if you've ever met him, you've ever seen him, I can hear him right now. He's always got a smile on his face. His name is Mr. RUBEN. RUBEN, welcome to Robservations.
Bon vivant, huh? Bon vivant.
Bon vivant, hey, you like that?
Like
of course, I said it with my great French, bon vivant. No, bon vivant.
Bon vivant. Very
there you
nice.
go. RUBEN, it's
How you
great.
doing, Duke?
It's good to have you here. You know, I've known you for a long time, and again, I tell people whenever I see you, you have a smile on your face, and you did not disappoint. Now, I would direct everybody over to your IMDb page. You look at your IMDb page all the way back to 1985. You started out as the convict in a movie called The Illegal Immigrant.
Wow. You pulled that one out.
You know, now I got to ask you, since I got you here, before we get into the topic at hand,
Sure.
was acting something you always aspired to do?
That's funny you should ask me that. I started out as a writer, and now still am, but I was in college, and I was writing short stories and poetry and won contests. I got to me write a play now, but I want to go on the inside and research it. So I took an acting class to see what it's like from the character's
Nice. That
point
was
of
probably
view.
smart.
Yeah, and I started doing it. I go, I kind of like this. So then the bug bit me, and I stayed doing that. But now I'm also writing and directing and doing the whole thing. But that's how it started.
That's how. So you really can't. It wasn't like you grew up wanting to be a movie star.
No,
Now-
it's college. Yeah,
Now you do this movie. You've been on soaps.
Sure.
You've been on a lot of episodic television. You were on things like The Practice.
Yeah, I love
The
that show.
Agency. Everybody Loves Raymond. You were on my mom's
Yeah.
favorite show in the world, General Hospital. Judging Amy, CSI Miami. You were in the movie The Fallen.
Yeah. Don't forget 24. That's a big favorite.
Well, The Fallen was directed by Ari Taub, by the way,
Yeah,
who was a
yeah.
producer on the last movie I produced, Tango Shalom.
Get out of here! I didn't know that.
I know, right? I didn't know it until just now. And then,
That's
of course,
hilarious.
on 24, you played Yusuf Amar.
Yeah.
So now you have played lots of ethnic characters.
Sure. I've done that a lot. Greek, Italian, Jewish, Hispanic. I go across the board.
So you're like the wokest character actor ever. You can be any
That's right.
ethnicity.
I'm very awoken.
You're awoken. Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, Without a Trace.
That's right.
I mean, you've been on everything. And then I met you so what people don't know is that LA has let's call it what we're going to call it, the horror crowd.
The horror crowd.
And there's actually, in my mind, there's two subsets of the horror crowd. There's people that live on one side of the Hollywood Hills, and then there's the rest of us.
Yeah.
All the people that live in the valley. So if you could explain, I mean, and you've been in Insidious,
Sure.
you've been in Mike Mendez's Big Ass Spider, you've been in
Yeah.
Contracted, you were the doctor in Contracted. You were everything, Chemical Peel, Thresher, Contracted 2, Lavalantula that Mike also
baby.
directed.
Mike also directed that, yes. Mike Mendez, shout out.
XS, Mike Mendez, yeah. I mean, you Dragon, Soldiers, Repressed, Jurassic Hunt, Malignant. You were in James Wan's Malignant.
Yeah, that's my second film with him, yes.
Yes, and because you were in the original Insidious.
Yes.
So let me ask you this. What is the horror crowd?
The horror crowd. Well, you kind of said it. You know, it's the people in Los Angeles, Hollywood area, in the Valley that, we all kind of hang out, and we all happen to be involved with, horror, and we either act in it, direct it, write it, or just go watch it, And I was traveling in those horror circles and working with these people like James Wan, Mike Mendez, all these other people. And then I thought, you know what? I want to talk to these people. I want to find out what makes them tick, what their favorite, movies are, horror movies, their inspiration. And so I approached my good buddy, Hank Braxton, who directed Chemical Peel, Dragon Soldiers, and Jurassic Hunt, all three, which I was in. And he said, hey, I got this idea. What do you think? Blah, blah. He goes, I love the idea, but you know what? Forget the phone idea. I'll bring in some cameras. I'll bring the sound kit. I'll bring the lighting kit. And then we'll go all out and go, great. And we brought in his wife, Ariel Brockfeld, who became my producing partner. And then I started talking to people. I started asking people, like Lynn Shay and Greg Grunberg and Darren Bousman and Mike Mendez and all these other people. Charles De La Zarica, our good buddy. And they said, you want to do this? You want to tell me about your horror thing? Blah, blah, blah. And they all said, yeah, let's do it. And they opened up and they told me their secret, told you guys their secrets and their passions.
One of the things that I have to say about, and I know there's some people that are going to disagree with what I'm about to say, but no, I think that what I've loved about this horror crowd, I mean, I'm very much on the periphery of it. I've never directed a horror movie. I mean, I've made other things, and then I produced one horror film with Dave Parker, The Hills Run Red. Right. But what I've loved about being a part of this horror crowd is we had a standing Thursday night. We'd go to Timmy Nolan's in Toluca Lake, and the horror crowd is very social. Everybody shows up at each other's screenings, and we'd be parties, and we're in each other's movies. And of all the communities that I've known and been a part of in LA, especially the Hollywood communities, the horror crowd has been the most supportive and the most fun to be around. Like everybody's always doing something, even if it's ultra low budget. It's not a lot of people sitting around bitching and moaning and complaining about how they're like my TV writer friends are always angry.
Yeah.
The horror crowd is not always angry.
Yeah. Everybody has their different foibles and quirks and idiosyncratic things. But somebody that I interviewed in the horror crowd and worked with a lot of comedians, and they're the most depressed people in the world. I'm not saying that. This person said it. So
sure. Well, I want to show a trailer. I've got, first of all, here is the poster. Here's the poster for the horror crowd. And let's run. I'm going to run the trailer. It's a quick trailer. We're going to run it now.
The Exorcist, Jaws, Alien.
It was severe. It was intense.
I wanted to watch it.
I didn't sleep for 2 weeks.
Who are the minds behind the macabre of present day?
Biggest horror geeks and minds together, from A-listers to D-listers.
Were they as strange and twisted as their creations?
I didn't know any idiot can buy a video camera and make a movie. I'm like, I can be this idiot.
My parents didn't know what to make of it.
My dad was like, oh, so you're going to be a hooker now.
There are two types of people, Rocky Horror people and non-Rocky Horror people. Sometimes that can lead to drama.
The horror crowd helps each other out.
Makes me a little bit emotional to think about it.
The horror kids from around the globe found each other and slowly became...
Well, there's that.
Damn, I want to see that.
Right? Well, you got a lot of heavy hitters in the horror crowd in this documentary, and the documentary you've now traveled to a lot of different film festivals.
Over 40.
Yeah, over 40, and the film has sort of been embraced, and everyone really loves it. Now, tell us, When you now embarked on, you had this idea and you were going to shoot it on your phone or whatever, but now that you have producing partners and you've got cameras and real equipment, what was it like for you to make this film?
Knew or had worked with pretty much everybody in the film, so I felt very comfortable with them, and more importantly, they with me. So when we did the interviews, we're like hanging out, arms around each other, high-fiving. I'm at Lynn's house in her yard, and she's got her puppy on her lap, and we're all cracking up. It was easy. I mean, it was really easy. I'm not just saying it was really, the hard part was later putting it together, assembling, like 40 hours of footage down to 90 minutes. So that's and when I say hard, I mean time consuming. I loved every moment of it, because to me, editing is like sculpting. You like take a little bit of clay here, a little bit, put it together.
Absolutely.
I just love doing it. I know you do that too. So to me, it was a piece of cake, and I loved every moment of it.
Now, from the time that you had the idea to the time it was completed, how long did it take you?
I had it shot and done, did the interviews, which the interviews took like not even 2 months, 6 weeks, because I was like from one to the, some came to my house, so I went to some other's house, we shot in the studio, we shot in a bar, we shot in the park, all different kinds of things. But total, it was going out to festivals in less than 2 years. It was shot and cut and print and let's go. So less than 2 years. Yeah.
Wow.
I'd say maybe even 18 months. Yeah.
I mean, that's great. We know so many people.
Sure.
People talk about making movies and then they don't do it. And now, what did you learn about the horror crowd? Were there things that you didn't know, surprising revelations to be had?
Sure. I mean, you got Mike Mendez, our good buddy, who's telling me about, first horror movie he ever saw, The Hills Have Eyes, at age 3.
That's not a good thing to show a 3-year-old.
Yeah, and that's in the documentary, and he talks about it, and he's totally serious. And it's like, he's a little boy watching this, and he says, and that probably effed me. He says the word.
Right. Oh, you can say it.
Well, whatever. And then you got like, Lynn Shay, who's a sweetheart of a woman, and she's talking this and that. He goes, I said, well, like, Lynn, tell me, what's your dark side? Just a question that just came up on the spot.
Sure.
She goes, and she just like kind of like froze for a moment, because she's done like 100 interviews and she'd never been asked that question. She goes, that's a really good question. And she paused and paused and paused. She goes, well, sometimes I get a little jealous of other people and I can be kind of mean. And, she started just revealing these words, because everybody has a dark side. Some people said they didn't. I asked like Oren Pell, he goes, I don't think so. I'm a regular guy. And he is a regular. He's a funny guy, Oren Pell.
He is.
Paranormal Activity creator. But he said, I don't think so. And I cut right to Russell McKay. He goes, of course I do. So it's like everybody was different. So I learned those kind of things.
Now, when some of the horror crowd, like Ryan Turek, who was a journalist and wrote for various horror websites, crossed over, and now he was an executive at Blumhouse. Now he's producing for Blumhouse. He was working on the Halloween films. When you've and a lot of people in this horror crowd have crossed over. Sure. They worked for websites and then they found themselves becoming professional filmmakers. When you talk to people like that, what were some of the pearls of wisdom that they imparted to you in the documentary?
Well, since you brought up Ryan Turek, I mean, I knew him way before I got into Blumhouse. He had the website, chud.com and these kind of things. And we talk about it in the documentary. He goes, so I told my mom, I got this website, chud.com. She goes, what? A website? He goes, and then now I'm doing this for Blumhouse. So now, of course, the parents are much more proud.
Right.
So obviously now it's become gotta say this. To me, the most interesting thing about the Ryan Turek Blumhouse connection was that he was one of the guys responsible for giving Adam Robitel his big break in directing Insidious 4, The Last Key.
Yeah.
He was like, I love The Taking of Deborah Logan, Adam's first film, which I adore. Have you seen that, The Taking of Deborah Logan?
Oh, yeah. Adam and I we worked on Superman Returns. We were in Australia together for a year.
Okay.
Editing video and shooting video and doing all of Brian's blogs. I love Adam.
Oh, Adam's a wonderful person. And in the scene in the cave when spoil Brian was telling me, we had all these people like considering who's going to take over, for at that point Lee Winnell, because James already had left it, and Lee had done the last one. Lee says, I don't want to do it. You want to go Invisible Man and whatever. And he goes, I like Adam Robitel. Then they, talking and pitching, and they gave it to Adam, and he was down to the short list, and then they said, you're the guy. And Adam's life changed. He had used the last $2,000. It says in the movie that he had in the bank account to get a storyboard presentation to go in and do the pitch and draw. This is what I'm going to do with Insidious and with Lin Shaye and blah 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 blah. And he got it.
Yeah,
and to me that was amazing.
I mean, he deserves it. It was funny when we were in Australia. He would throw Exorcist quotes at me. Like he'd be editing and just randomly he'd be like "La plume de la tante," and he'd just say, and I'd be like, "You know what she did, your canting daughter?" I mean, he was hilarious, and I think he was born to make horror films. And then to see that he goes on and does Escape Room and Escape Room 2, and he's got so much going on, and he was
TV
writing.
Show.
Yeah, his TV show. He was doing that even back then. So, yeah, it's great to see a lot of that. Why do you think so many of these people have a shared? I mean, I know on the science fiction side, I guess I know people that they sort of heard the clarion call of filmmaking, but a lot of them came out to L.A. They had no connections here, and they all came out here, and I didn't either. I mean, I came down from Seattle, and what do you think? I mean, why horror? Why do so many people? I mean, obviously, Monsterpalooza is a big convention here. Mm-hmm. What is it about horror? More, I think, than any other genre, it keeps people going. Whether you're like writers like Dave Scow or other friends of ours, the people that are in this crowd seem to be some of the most motivated and proactive of any group. Why do you think that is?
Several of the people I interviewed in the horror crowd, they talk about this very thing. Why they're drawn to it, why they continue to do it, how they got caught up in it from the beginning. And what I seem to get, I have a whole segment called Being the Weird Kid, and that's encapsulates it. That's kind of it. I mean, all of them, from Darren Bousman to Mike, I mean, just down the line. I was a weird kid. I was an outsider, and this thing, I could escape through this, and I could empower myself through this, and it answered my questions about life. And I mean, the answers I get on some of the stuff is really fascinating. How they found this their path through horror. It's and then not all of them are crazy. Kooky people. Like people think, they're all nuts. They all look crazy. Very super goth people. There's some of those. You know who I'm talking about.
Sure.
But some of them, they have kids and they take.
Ruben just got disconnected. Hang on. Hopefully, maybe he was gesticulating and disconnected himself. Come back, Ruben. Come back. Let me see if I can get it back, everybody. Hopefully he will be back. I lost you. Hang on. Hopefully his phone didn't go out. I'm talking to him on Facebook, but he'll come back. So the film, the documentary, is going to be on, I think it's on iTunes, and it's either on iTunes soon or it's already on iTunes. And what we're looking to do is to drum up interest in the film. So if you go to iTunes and pre-order it, I would love to bolster any kind of support you can give to this movie, because I think it's a wonderful film, and it has a really interesting story behind it, and the community is great that it details. And hopefully Ruben will come back, and he'll get back on. I don't know why that happened, but that was interesting. Hey, as you know, modern technology, you never know what's going to happen here on a YouTube. But the horror crowd is a really fun documentary. It has a lot of heavy hitters in it, a lot of people in the industry, and I'm a big fan of it. So I wanted to have Ruben on to talk about. Ruben's back. There you go, Bat. You're back. Ruben's back.
Technical difficulty day here.
Yeah, it's all right. So you're back. That's all that matters.
It's all that matters, baby.
It's showtime. The show must go on. So yes. You were getting into talking about the thing that a lot of people had in common is they were the weird kids. and they were so you were kind of discussing that, and the funny thing is there's the fun weird kids and the not so fun weird kids, and I think the horror crowd were always kind of the fun weird kids, even if people didn't know it when they were kids.
Yeah. No question. I mean, as you know, you can see it at the parties. I mean, how many, parties at Charles de Las Rigas house have we been to? And, what a great time. The New Year's parties, the summer parties, you name it.
The five-way parties with everyone, the five birthdays. I mean, they're
the 5 birthdays.
Hundreds of people.
For those people out in the audience, that he would do a 5-way birthday, not a 5-way weird thing, just 5-way birthday.
Although I'm sure it's devolved into that sometimes.
Although he did have that big bed outside in the patio that one year, remember?
Yes, he did.
But anyway, 5-way birthday, 5 different people from the horror crowd had the same birthday, and they would celebrate it, and an enormous amount of people would be there. So anyway, so getting back to the point, the fun day would have parties it's not just parties. It's not like it's only parties. Screenings. We go support each other.
Yeah.
Each other's screenings. New Year's Eve, Christmas, Halloween is the big one. Costume parties right and left. One year I went to seven? Yeah. Parties with 7 different costumes, of course. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing. Like this crowd. We also used to have a standing Christmas Eve Toys R Us run. We'd go to Toys R Us.
I heard about it.
Yeah, midnight.
Yeah. Spooky and Mike and those guys, right?
Yeah. Darren Scott.
Right. And Tammy and Spooky. Yeah.
Oh, yep.
I heard about that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, you look at like what Spooky Dan did with Darren Bousman on Repo the Genetic Opera, how they took it on the road, and they were supporting that crazy Repo army, and people would turn out. And how many Darren Bousman doesn't have to, he makes the Saw films, and then he does many sequels, makes some good money, and then goes out and makes Repo the Genetic Opera. That not exactly. Can you imagine going in to pitch that to some studio? Yes, I would like to make Repo the Genetic Opera.
Darren Bousman, to me, is truly one of the renaissance men of the horror crowd, because he is very successful with the Saw franchise, 4 of them, and other things. But he wants to do the wacky stuff like Repo and Devil's Carnival, and stuff like that. And then have people come in and do. He does musicals. He talks about that in the documentary. He was very influenced early on by Rocky Horror, The Apple. Things like that made him want to do musical stuff too. Usually you don't connect horror with musical too often, except for like Little Shop of Horrors or something like that.
Right.
You don't really think of that. And speaking real quickly about Darren, when I told my daughter Madeline that, Darren Bousman was going to be in the thing, and he was talking about a Repo Genetic Opera, she goes, "Oh my God, Dad, that's like my favorite movie." And I didn't know that. I didn't know that at the time. And because she already moved away, she's college. I was, talking to him about it, this and that. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, crazy, weird, nice people. Yes.
Now, when you were going through and making the film, and it's feature length, so had you made a feature length film before?
2 shorts.
2 shorts. Now, what was it like transitioning to feature length, going from short films to feature length? Was it any different?
Not for me. I know maybe for some other people, and understandably, but it was just, I did I wrote the 2 shorts, and I directed them, and my daughter Madeline was in one of them. Mm-hmm. And then Ariel Brockfeld, who's, worked on Horror Crowd with me, she was the lead along with Matt Mercer in the second one. It's called Head, about a decapitated head who's still alive and torturing her husband.
Matt Mercer, who was in an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, I believe, a long time ago. I didn't know
that.
I think he was.
I believe you. I didn't know that. And I've seen every single episode. Not as many times as you, Rob, but but yeah, he was in it. She was in it. They were great. And then Hank Braxton, her husband, produced it with me. So what were we talking about? How did we get to that?
Well, I mean, just moving over, transitioning over. I could be wrong about Matt Mercer. I might be thinking about Matt McCoy. I might.
Oh, Matt McCoy was definitely in TNG. Yes, it's okay. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, Matt Mercer's too young.
Listen, let me just say this right now. Yeah. And Matt Mercer's it's much younger than Matt McCoy. Let me just say this right now. Let me interject this, Rob. You've got so much freaking knowledge up here in your noggin. Because I've seen you obviously on Campia and your stuff and other things. And you just go, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, does he know that? You know? I mean, because you know these things. Because I'm a big comic book geek. I'm like really big. But I've heard you talking on your show about it and go, he's got me beat. You know?
Well, I mean, it's funny because I think, you know, one of the what's I think my greatest strength is almost my greatest detriment is that I'm such a fanboy that it's difficult for me to balance my professional career and my fan career, and so often I've chosen things that indulge them both. Like, you know, and I remember I've done a lot of work with Bryan Singer and did a lot of documentaries with him, and Bryan told me that he just made the decision one day to become a movie director. Like, and then he relentlessly pursued that. And he went out, you know, he went to USC, he went to School of Visual Arts in New York. And when he did a short, he grew up with Chris McQuarrie and Ethan Hawke. And so he went out and just made a short that McQuarrie and Ethan and Bryan, they're in it. McQuarrie wrote it, you know, and that short film that he made ended up getting him his financing for his first film, Public Access, that then won. It shared the grand prize at Sundance. It tied with Ruby in Paradise, which was Ashley Judd's big. See, I never really did that. I was always kind of like, oh yeah, let's go make a movie. Let's work at Full Moon, you know, whatever came down the pike. But that's where I met people like with Dave Parker. You know, we both worked at Full Moon together, and we're just having the best time.
Yeah. And speaking of Bryan Singer, he also worked with Adam Robitel, right? Oh, yeah. Adam worked with him and inspired him, and was very inspirational to him and very, you know, supportive. And yes, go do this and do that and keep going. And then he did take, you know, Deborah Logan. Yeah. And boom, he exploded from there.
Yeah, and I mean, I love when Adam was he was an actor in movies like 2001 Maniacs, you know, the remake back.
Sure, I saw it. Yeah, I went to the premiere of that.
He did. He was great in that. He was
where I met Mickey Dolenz. So that alone was worth it to me. From the Monkees, Mickey Dolenz.
Oh yeah.
He was there. We talked. He had his hat on. He always wears a hat. And he does. And I just saw him recently in concert, as a matter of fact, a few months ago. But anyway.
Well,
yes, go ahead.
Well, so you've got, like, you talk about Maddie, your kids. You have two daughters, right?
Madeline and Miranda. Yes.
And Madeline's, she was working her way up. She was turning her fandom into a professional career.
Yeah, Madeline was she went to UC Berkeley as a music major and graduated and got the degree, and then took off to New York and put a band together herself. She put it together. Because Madeline can sing, write, play guitar, She's like, you know, like Prince.
Just like Prince.
Well, you know, but she's alive. But anyway, too soon?
No.
So she went to New York and started the band, and started playing gigs, and it was like, and I was like managing them, and I was helping to get them going, and it was Dad, can you get us into this other bigger venue? And I called the guy up, and blah, blah, got him in, and they were getting the medium venues. And then what happened then? What hit then, Rob?
COVID.
Destroyed all these bands, and I've met a lot of these bands because they would play together and they you know headline each other and all this, and then for 2 years they couldn't play anywhere. Neither could the big bands.
Right.
And then it's just, you know, they lose steam. You lose steam. The band goes separate ways and all that. So she's still hopefully gonna, you know, do some stuff, but right now she's transitioning. But Miranda, real quick, my other daughter Miranda, who graduated from Brown recently, I'm very proud of that too. She got pulled in by Disney. She graduated and they said, "Come here." They recruited her. They relocated her to LA, and she's you know, working for Disney.
That's amazing.
So, yeah.
Well, what I was gonna lead into that is,
yes,
you know, the world of the horror crowd. Our world has changed. Now there's YouTube, there's TikTok, there's people who are making. And I'm just wondering, do you think that there will be another generation of the horror crowd coming up? Do you think that there's kids who are like, that are 12, 13, 14 years old, the weird kids, whatever, that are going to pick up cameras and want to make feature films? Or is everybody just going to want to make video games and short form videos for the internet?
I totally believe. I mean, the history of horror, of filmmaking in general, any kind, you know, it could be film noir. The history of horror films is so engaging, and even kids will watch it. Like my daughter, Repo, watching Repo, whatever. I think they're so influenced. How can they not be like, watch? I want to. It's like Russell Mulcahy says in the documentary. He's watching Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, and the freaking Cyclops comes across the rock on the beach, and he goes, "I want to be able to do that." When he was a kid, when he was a little 10-year-old or something, and that happens. Just no way the kid's not ever a movie and saying, "I want to do that," not just I want to make the 2-minute thing. Or whatever.
Right, and then you have to learn. I mean, but also when we were younger, you had Starlog was publishing Cinemagic magazine, and you could buy these magazines that would cover whether it was Cinefex or there was so much more out there that I felt that you had to seek it out. You had to go to the store and find it. And buy it.
Internet.
Yeah, there's no internet. And you had to make the trip. And, I would seek out, I'm like, oh, the new issue of Fangoria magazine's out, so I have to, go somewhere and find it. I had to go to downtown Seattle and go to, a comic book store to actually get the issue because I wasn't going to find it in my grocery store. So, I mean, part of it was that there was that seek and discover aspect of being a fan that has sort of been all removed now that we have. And
That's true. That's true.
And even seeing films. Another thing growing up, I mean, any exploitation titles were not available. If you could get a bootleg videotape of Uncut Suspiria on tape, you'd hit the gold mine. And now I'm surrounded by films. I just got Dario Argento's Tenebrae in 4K, and I thought that I would never have dreamed in 82 when that came out that I would own a copy of it that's more pristine than any I would have seen in the theater.
You didn't know what 4K was back then.
No. And the films we get, you'd get a cut version of these. The American version of Tenebrae is called Unsane, and it's edited.
That's hilarious.
Is that a
word, unsane?
Unsane, yeah. And it's funny.
Insane, but...
I think Steven Soderbergh also made a movie called Unsane that he shot on an iPhone 7. So, we live in a very different world now. And... I think that maybe your film will inspire the next generation, the generation of. The kids now are weirder than ever before, judging by what you see on TikTok and social media. So maybe they need the horror crowd. They need to create the new horror crowd. You know what I mean? You froze. Well, I don't know. Hang on. Let me see if I can bring you back. And come back and reconnect. Nope, you're still frozen. Well, Ruben, let's see. Maybe I'll get you back. But if I don't get you back, it's been fun talking to you, Ruben. I've quite enjoyed it. Let's see. You froze. Which is kind of cool. I do want to get you back to talk about. If you're still watching, Ruben, come back to me because I want to talk to you about where people can get up. Oh, there you go. You're back. I know it's very odd. So listen,
chilly. Yes.
So now tell us about the horror crowd is now coming out. It's going to be streaming
September 2nd.
September 2nd. So how do people get it?
Go to iTunes. Go to Apple TV. It's on pre-order right now. You don't have to wait till September 2nd. It's actually on pre-order. You know how that works. And just go there, look for the horror crowd, and pre-order it. And as soon as it comes out September 2nd, they email it to you, and you're good to go.
So why is it important that as many people pre-order it now as possible?
Usually they do a discount when you pre-order, and you just get it right away. They let you know it's ready.
But we want to get the analytics up so it goes on their homepage, right?
That is correct. Thank you for mentioning that. So funny, I didn't think of that right now. If we get enough pre-orders, it's like 500 pre-orders, then it goes on the new and noteworthy list, and you're there, next to World War Z or whatever, So that's not new, but yeah. So yeah, if you guys want to pre-order that would be nice, and get it up on that list. Yeah.
Well, that's what we that's what we have to do. That's why, hence interviewing you. We want to get the horror crowd up to and get people to see it, as many people as possible. Now,
well, I think real quick, I think people that the non-horror people, because that's real quick.
No, take your time.
This movie's not only made for like horror nuts or horror aficionados. Like I said, the film was in 40 festivals, and I got so much, feedback from people like weren't even horror people saying, "Oh, this thing is like," it spoke to me too, because it's like, I want my own or plumbing or art, sculpting, whatever, music, so that people like to have their own crowd that can relate to and meet once a week, like we did for trivia at Jump Cut Cafe. We'd meet once a week, once a month, and then we'd parties and this and that and the other screenings. So people like to do that. So I think it inspires, and when you watch the arc of the story, I think you see the inspiration of hanging out with that crowd, networking, and all that. So yeah.
Oh no, absolutely. And I think it's great. Anyone who's passionate about anything, I don't care if you're passionate about horticulture or orchid breeding or whatever, I think that it's that's one of the things about your documentary is that it shows that kind of passion. And it just happens to be that it happens to deal with horror films and that crowd. But anybody who's passionate, and one of the great things I think now that people forget about, there's so much vitriol on the internet, and people are always screaming at each other like, rah, 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 rah. But the internet can also be used to, like, not if you're necessarily want to overthrow the government, but there's that too. But if you want to find your crowd, you want to find your tribe.
Oh yeah, much easier now. Yeah.
Yeah, but I always encourage people that one of the great things is to go out and meet people and to hang out. And like that's the great thing about the horror crowd here in LA is someone's always putting on a party, or someone's always putting on an event, or something is always happening.
Screening.
And people show up, like, James Wan can be directing the $1 billion Aquaman franchise, but he'll show up at Charlie's house for New Year's Eve.
Mm-hmm, sure.
And you can walk up to and talk to him. He's the nicest guy in the world. He hasn't changed a bit, and that's one of the great things about this crowd of people is that everybody's still friends with everybody else, no matter what. No one puts on airs and says, well, I made this movie that grossed this amount of money, so I don't have to talk to you anymore. It's not like that.
Yeah, actually, Andrew Cash talks about that in the documentary, that you could be, the horror crowd is made up of A-listers to D-listers, somebody who's got $1 billion movies to $20,000 movies, and there's no social barriers in the horror crowd. In his words,
not at all.
Yeah.
There really isn't, and I think that's really amazing. It's an amazing group. So what's next for you? Do you have the filmmaking documentary bug?
Yeah, I'm gonna do the sequel, the sci-fi crowd, in which you will figure prominently.
Oh well, I would love that. Yeah, it's that's something I've been involved in for a long time.
I know. Seriously. Go ahead.
Oh no, that's another. But it's different. The sci-fi crowd's a little different than the horror crowd.
Sure.
It's not as welcoming. No, I shouldn't say that.
If you don't do this, they won't talk to you.
Yeah. It's true.
No, but I'm a big trekker too. Just because comic books, horror, trek, sci-fi. But no, seriously, as far as the next project, let's see what gets offered. Let's see what this leads to. Let's see how it does and all that. So I don't want to say, oh, this is definitely my next one. Not quite yet.
Right. Now, do you have any films? Have you done any acting lately? Is there anything we can that you have coming up?
Coming up, yes. I did Malignant, James' other film that I did, and that came out a little while ago, but it's still around. That was fun. Mike Mendes is in it too.
Yep.
And my buddy John Brody's in it. But anyway, I shot a detective thriller in LA. I was there. I say, hey, let's go meet.
Yeah.
And you couldn't come. That's okay. And then I shot that, and I played the captain to the two lead detectives. So that was a fun role. That's like, sending the guys on the case and reprimanding them and this and that. And this kid I know. Yeah, but it got also emotional because this kid that I helped grow, raise, in the streets. He was in the streets. He gets, hurt by some bad people, and there's a hospital scene. Get emotional. So it was a fun role.
Well, that's great. That's great, and it's great. Now, are you in LA? You in New York now? Where?
Well, I like to consider myself technically bi-coastal because that was the plan when my wife. The East Coast, COVID had not hit yet. Literally, we booked our flights in March, Rob, and what happened at the end of that? Oh, and we get on the plane, we're in the plane, and the plane's empty. It's like, I think there was one person down there and one other over there. I'm not exaggerating. There was like 3 people on the plane. And I was like, okay. So that affected everything because, as far as there was no auditions, there was nothing going on. So I couldn't fly back and forth. There's no need to fly back and forth. So just recently, I've been going out here on the East Coast, New York and stuff. But I flew back, like I said, for that movie, and I've flown back a couple of times. My wife flies back. And now that my daughter's out there, I'll probably be flying out back there much more.
Right.
So.
Well, we'll have to get together. So the horror crowd's out September
2nd.
September 2nd.
But you can pre-order it today.
Pre-order it today, so everybody go do that. Now, Ruben, are you on social media? Can people find you on social media?
Facebook and Instagram. I'm also on Twitter, but I don't go there as often. Mostly Instagram and Facebook.
Just
That's
under your name?
Thing. Under my name, Ruben Pla, or the Horror Crowd. You want to check out the Horror Crowd, either one, Instagram or Facebook too. But yeah, if you go to mine, there's links to the Horror Crowd Facebook, Instagram page. But yeah, it's and if you want to be updated on the goings on of the movie, I posted today. I posted every day. I post about we got this review. We got to cut it here. We got to do there. It's the link for the iTunes is here. So I'm always doing something about that. So
now, before I let you go, I got to ask you, what are some of your favorite horror films of all time?
We talk about that in the documentary, so I'm going to leave that one there.
All right.
No, I won't do that to you. I'll tell you one, even though I've had many. When people say, "What's your favorite anything song?" I go,
sure,
dude, I got 5, I got 10, I got whatever, movie. Oh my God. So as far as specifically horror movies, I spent a lot of time in the documentary on Alien. And Alien, as you know, is a sci-fi horror movie. It's not just sci-fi because it isn't. It's a haunted house movie in space.
Absolutely. To the point where it's literally a haunted house. It's a haunted house. A spaceship is towing a haunted house.
They're going through the dark tunnels, and the xenomorph is popping out instead of a ghost. And then Charles does Lazarica and I, my buddy Cyrus Vorse, we dissect Alien very in the documentary very specifically about that, how it is clearly a horror movie. So that's kind of why it may be one of my top 3. You got a Shining and other things and whatever.
Sure.
But Jaws. Okay, real quick. Jaws is a horror movie. It's an adventure, but it's a horror movie.
I totally agree, and I can't wait to see it in IMAX in a couple weeks. Yeah. Being re-released in theaters, I can't wait.
Yeah. So those are just 3 off the top of my head. Even though I said I was going to tell you only one, I told you 3 already.
No, so, it's good. It's good. Well, listen, Ruben, I really appreciate your time. Being on the show.
Thank you.
It's been great talking with you, and let me throw up the Horror Crowd. Here it is. Here's the poster for the Horror Crowd, and everybody should get it. You can get it on iTunes. Pre-order it, so we get it up on the recommended or the top. The titled the homepage of iTunes, new and noteworthy. That's what we need, new and noteworthy. So it is. So it is on Apple TV. All right,
Apple TV and iTunes on 2 different sites. Yeah, 2 different sites. But,
all right. Well, listen, I will let you go. Thanks for coming in for the show. It was good to do a quick little show specifically dedicated to you.
I appreciate it very much, Rob. It's always a pleasure. Seriously.
It's always great to see you, man.
And my girls told me how they were always enthralled when you would tell at Charlie's house. You would tell your stories of, Ian McKellen, Lord of the Rings, when you're talking to him, interviewing this and that, and dear boy, the whole thing. And they're like, so I never forgot that.
And X-Men as well, interviewing him on the set of X2.
Sure.
Which was always good.
I never forgot how good you were to my girls about that kind of stuff.
Well, that's good. I mean, your girls are always very impressive. They're a very, very impressive. Your whole family, a very impressive group of a showbiz family. And you guys were always you're always smiling. I said you were always smiling. You never didn't have a smile on your face or a laugh for anybody that you would meet, which I respect that. I respect that very much. Thanks, well, everyone, The Horror Crowd, iTunes, Apple TV on September 2nd. Ruben Pla, writer, director, impresario, actor, man about town, but most importantly, father, husband, a member of the Horror Crowd. Ruben, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Rob.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That, of course, was Ruben Pla. It was so good to see him, and he deserves your support and all of that. Well, everyone, this was just a special sort of impromptu Robservations, and it's sort of an atypical show, but I wanted to support my friend and get the word out on his film, so check it out. It's a lot of fun. If you're a horror aficionado, it's definitely something you would enjoy watching. So I want to thank everybody, as always, for supporting this channel via Super Chats and tips and letters. If you want to send a letter, you can go to postgeeksingularity.com. We will read letters live on the next Robservations, which is probably going to happen in 2 days. I want to direct everybody over to the Designing Hollywood podcast, of which there will be 2 episodes this week, one of which is a Star Trek episode that I didn't actually do the interview for. But it's going to be great. You're going to love it. And we will talk to you later. And remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I would say to everyone, have a better day.